Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Today I'm going to be talking about the AFL Brownlow medal, as there has been a lot of debate in the last few days about that award due to a recent betting scandal that came to light involving the 2022 Brownlow medal award. I'm not going to go over the whole scandal because I think there are many other sources with reliable information about how and what exactly happened in that scandal. Instead, I'm going to be discussing another talking point that has come out of this scandal, and that is that potentially the umpires aren't the best people to be awarding the Brownlow votes after each game, and that potentially they should be handed out by another group of expert panelists. I think there are good arguments for and against this case, so that is what I'll be discussing in this video, and without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, before we discuss the potential changes that could be made to the Brownlow system, let's talk about how the current one actually works. So the way it works is pretty simple. After every game of the home and away season, the field umpires will come together and collectively decide who they thought was the best on ground. They would give the 3 votes to the player they thought was the best on ground, 2 votes to the player they thought were the second best on ground, and the 1 vote to the player they thought was the third best on ground. So what exactly are some of the problems people have with this system? Well, for starters, when you think of most major sporting leagues across the world, such as the NBA, NFL, and EPL, they don't have a game-by-game voting system. Instead, at the end of the year, a panelist of judges will come together and cast their thoughts and their votes on who should be given the award for the Player of the Year. So in this way, the AFL is quite unique, which can be seen as a bit of a problem by some. It can also be seen as a benefit, makes the game a bit special. However, some people say that this is not necessarily the best way to decide who is the best player of the season, as sometimes players can not poll votes in games despite being perhaps the 4th or 5th best player and having a very clear impact on the game. Now, for the next point, we're going to be discussing a couple of AFL players who have voiced their opinions on the Brownlow medal, most notably Dane Zorko and Mason Cox. Both of them have come out saying that they don't really think the umpires should be the ones deciding the best on ground votes after each game. They think that it should be up to a different panel of experts. Neither of them specifically stated who they thought should be deciding the votes. However, I think potentially a panelist of media experts or coaches could do the trick. Coaches' votes do already exist, so I think that is something that could definitely be incorporated. Of course, you could always involve the fans somehow, or get another panel of experts specifically stationed to watch the game and decide on who they thought was the best on ground. Now, of course, there's always 2 sides to an argument, so it's only fair we go over some of the reasons why potentially keeping the current Brownlow system is the best idea. One of the arguments I've seen as to why umpires should be the ones giving out the votes is the fact that, well, frankly, they are out there on the field at all times, having to watch all players. So, it kind of makes sense that they are able to get a pretty good idea of who's the best on ground. Now, as for whether there should be a 3-2-1 voting system at all, as I did bring up briefly earlier, I think it does kind of make the game a bit unique, especially this aspect of the player awards. I think it does kind of create a little bit of a new dynamic that's not really seen in many other sports, because most other sports around the world just have a panel of voters at the end of the year that just judge who they think has been the best throughout the entire year. They don't look at the stats and figures on a game-by-game basis. So I think this does make our game a little bit unique, which again could really be seen as a positive or a negative. And yeah, I think it's just something a little interesting to think about. Now that we have gone through all of that, I would like to give my thoughts on how I think the Brownlow medal should be run and adjudicated. Personally, I'm not really the biggest fan of having umpires run the award and run the voting system, since frankly I think there's just been too many times where the umpires have just gotten the votes completely wrong. There's a few examples I can think of this year, and there's a few historical examples I can think of that are just mind-boggling, and I really don't understand how they picked out the votes. Like, for example, this year in round 23, Sam Taylor was, in my opinion, the clear best on ground against Fremantle. He had like 9 intercept marks. He was just an absolute rock in defence. But of course, the umpires, always giving the votes to the midfielders, gave 2 other players more votes ahead of him. So Sam Taylor only got 1 vote for what really should have been a 3-vote game. Back in 2013, there was an absolute shocking one where Tom Lynch got 2 votes for 10 goals and 21 disposals, which I don't get how in any universe that can not be 3 votes. And back in 2011, Steve Johnson got 2 votes for 7 goals, 34 disposals, and 10 goal assists, which just, I don't, that's probably the worst of the lot. I mean, that might be the worst 3-vote snubbing of all time. That's just, how can you not get 3 votes for that? I really don't understand. So I think it probably should be maybe the coaches or an expert panel doing it. The coaches' votes do already exist, and I think a lot of the time they are far more reliable than the Brownlow votes. So maybe we should just swap out and start making the coaches' votes the main award of most significance. To be honest, I wouldn't mind that at all. I think that's not a bad idea at all, having the coaches' votes mean more than the Brownlow votes, or just making the coaches' votes, well, the Brownlow votes. I think that would be a lot more reliable, and it would give us a more accurate representation of who's been the best player throughout the year. But anyways guys, that'll wrap up today's video. Hope you did enjoy. If you do have anything to say about this topic, please comment it down below. I'd like to hear all your thoughts on the Brownlow medal and how you think it should be run. But I think that'll wrap up today's video, and if you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.